Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is the Cats Roundtable with John Catsimatidis.
Everywhere around the world, they come to America. Every time that flag's unfurled, they come to America.
Good morning, America. This is the Cats Roundtable. John Catsimatidis here. One great show for you again today. Speaker Newt Gingrich, the chairman of the GOP, Chairman Joe Gruther. We have Dr. Peter Michalos, How Do We Live Long and Prosper? Lynn Shaw on Saving Our Kids. Linda Sinzinowitz, and she goes for voter fraud and is examining that whole area. Samir Halima, to what's going on in the Middle East. Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins. And let's start off with General David Petraeus, four-star general, CIA director. With us today is General David Petraeus, the head of the CIA. Well, General, where do you want to begin? I mean, it seems like Iran is on the front page. Nobody really knows what the heck is going on. Go ahead.
Well, the president obviously has had a number of meetings to discuss possible options for Iran, and they run the entire gamut, of course. There's diplomatic, there's economic, more sanctions. In fact, he actually did put some tariffs on those that trade with Iran, 25%, not trivial. There's cyber actions you can take, informational initiatives to try to help the Iranian people communicate with each other and with the outside world. That's all been cut off to the extent that the government there can. There's humanitarian options, and of course there are military options of various types. And I suspect that he was narrowing in on some of the military options and some of the others, to be sure, as well. And he got a communication 2 days ago, I guess it was, that from Iran that said there will be no execution. That was one of the big issues. And the killing is, as the president said, is going to stop. That coincided with what seems to be a reduction in the amount of demonstrations, because the Iranians, of course, have killed thousands of their own citizens. They have enormous security forces. The police, the besieged militia, which could number as much as 1 or more million, which have a national, provincial, district, and then even municipal headquarters for each one. They're the pipe swingers. They'll shoot people as well. And I think the cumulative toll, also reportedly well over 10,000 have been arrested, has just begun to prevail here. At the end of the day, I think it was always to be expected that the regime was going to prevail, just because they have everything to lose if the regime, and because they are so substantial in numbers. And they even can call on, of course, the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, which has its own Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, because the regime for years didn't trust the actual Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine. They wanted something that would ensure regime survival, and that is what seems to have happened. And I think that message, plus seeing the numbers of demonstrations coming down, probably prompted the president to delay, see where this goes, and to see whether or not he should take military action. Keeping in mind that, in truth, there's really not something that we could do that would help this leaderless group of demonstrators, massive numbers. And that's one of the challenges, of course, is they have no structure, there's no leader, there's no chain of command or anything like that, as was the case when it was the so-called Green Revolution that they had some years back, which didn't succeed either. But they could hit certainly headquarters of the besieged militia, the Ministry of Interior, security forces, again, the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, even the leadership locations itself. And I don't know that that would be a material assistance necessarily to the people on the streets. And at the end of the day, I think the base case always that I've always expected, and I think most other close observers, was that the regime was going to be able to prevail, even though without question the regime is, in a way, is dying a slow death, but one can never predict when that might actually end. They have so mismanaged the economy that inflation has gone very high. The real, their currency, has plummeted to an all-time low. And there's really not much the government can do to compensate for that with the people. They announced that they were going to give them the equivalent of $7 per month to try to offset what has happened, and that was largely greeted with derision. So that's where we are at this moment in time. And I think, again, that the regime will prevail, although there's always the possibility, John, that elements within the regime could assume the leadership. The supreme leader is obviously very, very old, supposedly infirm. There's not a designated leader. There's no succession plan. His son is one who could actually take over. That's probably not all that popular with the regime forces that are in the security services. And it's possible that some elements there could conspire together and make a play to take over the leadership so that you end up with a military-run country. But that's just not clear at this point in time.
We have Cuba doesn't have any oil or water or anything. We got Ukraine. We got Russia. I mean, what happens first?
Let's just start, I guess, in our own hemisphere with Venezuela, where the operation to bring President Maduro and his wife to justice was just nothing short of amazing. And John, I have to say, looking at the numbers that have come out, for example, that some 30 Cuban special forces who were around the president and augmenting his Venezuelan secret service got killed, among many others. I think this was a much dicier operation than people realize. Everyone just focuses, well, we didn't lose a soldier. Well, John, the lead pilot of the lead aircraft, which is one of the really large MH-47 Chinooks modified for special ops, actually got hit as it was coming in. The pilot got hit 3 times in the leg, and I'm sure everyone's heart was in their mouth where they were watching this, because you have lots of overhead surveillance to beam that back to you. And the pilot stuck the landing and managed, and all the operators got off, and then managed to recover the aircraft to an appropriate location. So I think, again, this was a much, much sportier and riskier operation than one might sense when we say, well, no one was killed. I do believe 7 were wounded, but really an extraordinary operation. 150 aircraft, 20 different launch sites, carried this out perfectly, took out all of the sophisticated Chinese and Russian air defenses of which Maduro was so proud, neutralized all the other response forces in various ways, and then extraordinary skill by those that were actually the ones that apprehended the president and then evacuated him to be brought to justice in New York. Now, of course, the question is, what is the ultimate outcome here? The president seems reasonably satisfied with the vice president who now has become the president, but now we're going to guide them through, presumably, an awful lot of intense negotiations. But is the ultimate outcome, when I hear the Secretary of State or even the president use the word transition, one thinks that at the end there will be either the installation of the leaders who won the election of 2024 by a 2-to-1 margin. That's an election that was run by Maduro and his regime. Or will there be a new election for a new democratically elected government? And That's just not known at this time. Obviously, there's a lot of work intensively right now to try to create the conditions that the oil majors understandably want to see in terms of various legal agreements and so forth and so on. But of course, there's much, much more beyond that. And I can only assume that the people of Venezuela who voted so overwhelmingly for the opposition candidate will not be pleased to see the current regime stay in power in the way that they are. So there's going to be a lot of tricky negotiating, I suspect, down the road. There will be some amnesty for some individuals, no doubt, and having seen what happened when Maduro passed up his chance to go to a nice exile, say, in the Eastern Med and beach in Turkey or something, instead will spend the rest of his life presumably in a federal penitentiary. I think that choice should be relatively straightforward, but a lot of details there. And then you mentioned Cuba, and you're exactly right. This will now deprive Cuba of its energy source. They won't get crude oil from Venezuela. They also have problems with their water supply. It's really an economy that is on the verge of complete collapse. It's just the vestiges of free market capitalism that they allow, but only up to a certain size. They won't allow too many employees. So it's an economy that is, again, a true basket case. And I assume that this would be the next domino to fall. But once again, it's hard to imagine how this regime might give up, but noting that it's not quite the extraordinarily high numbers and armed forces of Iran, noting that Iran is obviously a vastly larger country as well.
General, we're just about out of time, but I look forward again to having continued this discussion in the near future.
It'll be a pleasure.
Thank you so
John.
much. General Petraeus, thank you for doing what you did for our country and continue to do for our country. Thank you so much.
Greatest of privileges. Thank you.
The Cats Roundtable.
And with us today is Linda Sinkowitz, and she runs an outfit called the Fight Voter Fraud. Well, Linda Sinkowitz, what's going on with your organization, and what have you discovered?
Thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate this. Our organization, Fight Voter Fraud, actually just launched Operation Verify Voters 2026, where basically anybody can get involved in helping out in their local community and helping us to clean the voter rolls, because that's the big thing that we really want to do is clean the voter rolls.
Is there any particular states more so than not? I know during the election they pointed out that the only states that Kamala Harris won are the 17 states that have no voter ID.
Yes, that is a huge problem. And since I'm from Connecticut and I started it, 7.5 years ago because of what I found here in Connecticut, I would say Connecticut is one of the worst. And believe it or not, the second is Hawaii. Even though they are a very small state, percentage-wise, they have 27,000 absentee ballots that just showed up, no postmarks or anything else, and they were put into the system, and votes were counted, and they couldn't correlate them to who actually sent them in. There's all kinds of things that are going on all over the country. And Secretary of State and election officials, honestly, some of them are working at cleaning things up, but a majority are not even doing the very basic, which is canvassing every year for people who have not voted in the last 2 federal elections. So every 4 years, if someone hasn't voted, they are supposed to be contacted by your election officials to see if you actually still live there. Then if they don't get any information back, then they're on the inactive list for 4 years unless they get information. And then they're supposed to be put on the off list. The difference between off and inactive, in case people are wondering, is if you're put on the inactive list, that doesn't mean you can't vote, because you wouldn't find out until you go in to vote that you're on the inactive list. You would just need to prove it's you, and then you'd be able to vote. Being on the off list, there is no chance you would be able to vote. You would actually have to fill out an entirely new registration form. So that's the difference. So when we see deceased voters, which you guys have tons and tons of them, that are even listed as inactive, they're supposed to be off because they're dead. They're not going to come back to life unless a nefarious person decides to vote in their name, which quite frequently happens, by the way.
Will you keep us informed as the months go by? Because it's, it's only, 8 months left for the election.
If people want to get involved, go to our website, fightvoterfraud.org, and fill out the form for Operation Verify Voters 2026, and we will train you on what you can do, even from your own home, to help your community clean the voter rolls. But thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break.
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. With us like every Sunday, Dr. Peter Michalos. Live long and prosper is the nickname we gave him. And Dr. Michalos, we all want to live to 100. How do we get closer to it?
Well, today, John, we're going to talk about another interesting topic, and that's mold, and how mold can affect our longevity. It can shorten our longevity. And it turns out that mold is a driver of inflammation, and it affects the immune system. It can basically be an immune disruptor. And there's even certain molds like aflatoxins found in aging peanuts that actually can cause liver cancer and also associated with pancreatic cancer. And that was why peanut farmers, for example, in Jimmy Carter's family, they had a whole bunch of people who had died of cancer because they were exposed to peanuts. In the old days, they used to keep them in a barrel and you can shop for them. They don't allow that anymore because they grow mold, and the aflatoxins are known carcinogens. Now, in a house, where does mold grow? It grows in moist environments. It grows on sheetrock. It grows on wood. It can grow on wallpaper. It can grow on insulation. And carpet is one of the worst places for mold because mold needs moisture and it feeds on organic matter. And believe it or not, our skin does shed, and that is actually food for mold. And these mycotoxins that are produced from mold can cause coughing, sneezing, allergies, asthma attacks, and wheezing. And what you can do is you have to be able to try to mitigate mold. And you and I have talked about some of the things that you can do, including dehumidifiers. I keep an industrial grade one in the basement because I have a drain. So basically you set it to 30% humidity, and year round it keeps it that way, and it reduces your chance of having any type of mold growth, especially the really nasty, dangerous one that grows on sheetrock called black mold.
Do you use distilled water, Doctor?
Not for drinking. I'd rather use a mineral water. For certain things you can use distilled water.
No, I'm talking about for the humidifier.
I use filtered water, whole house filter, and then I have a filter that basically is a countertop. Fill it up with that water that's already been filtered, and then you just filter it out so that it's very clean water, and you get rid of the microplastics as well. But distilled water is fine. It's fine to use as well. It's just extremely expensive to keep buying. It's much cheaper to have a very high quality whole house water filter. But getting back to filtering the air, in Florida, for example, and in hospitals, they have big UVC lamps in the central air handler, and as the air passes through that, it fries and kills the mold, virus, and bacteria, and that is very helpful, and that's why Florida also fared better, because the rooms that have the UVC light it helps. And also the portable units that have a HEPA filter and UVC to kill the mold, and other things that you can do to mitigate it. Even your wet towel in the bathroom, you have to change them frequently, because that wet towel sitting around also is a place where mold can grow as well. Because these molds are basically, they're like tiny little seeds. They're called mold spores. And mold has its role in the universe. It actually eats dead organic matter. That's what eats up your leaves outside. But, it can also chew on fabrics and dust. But when you see those black spots on your sheetrock, painting over it doesn't kill it. You have to sometimes remove the entire sheetrock because the insulation is contaminated underneath. Bleach works very well to try to kill all the mold. You have to clean it up, get rid of the old insulation, and then you can repaint. And now they even have paints that are specifically mold resistant. And these are, some of the things that you can do for mold mitigation, because now we know about all these other things that it can cause, like the cancer, and it's even a hormone disruptor, and it's been found to even cause neuroinflammation, and that's brain inflammation. And there is a test that is made by a company that you can check your urine, and the mold metabolites show up in the urine. One quick case, a lady who had skin lesions was seen at all these different hospitals in the Northeast, Ivy League places. They kept giving her steroid creams for her skin, sent her to an integrative medicine specialist, and Dr. Magdalena, and she did a urine sample test, and it came out mold. They treated the mold, and guess what? All the skin lesions went away, and I keep getting thank you messages. So that's a fascinating thing that you're not going to get elsewhere. So that's something that you have to think about when you have, chronic wheezing, coughing. You can do mold testing in your home, and there's even a urine test now that we can actually test to see if we have those mold metabolites. So mold, you have to be careful, especially in immune-compromised people who are taking anti-rejection drugs, for example, who've had transplants. Those people's immune system is down. They're more susceptible to mold infections. It could even cause a sinus infection. That's why it's so important to keep your air clean and keep the moisture level under control. I keep a $10 hygrometer in each of the rooms, and I know what the percent humidity. So ideally, I like to keep it between 40 and 50%. You don't want to go above 50% because that's an environment that causes mold to grow.
Dr. Peter Michalos, thank you for your tips, and God bless you and God bless America.
Thank you, John, and thanks for always getting the medical truth out on the Cats Roundtable.
The Cats Roundtable.
With us today is Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins. You worked originally for Texas Governor Rick Perry. He was always a good guy.
I met Rick Perry when I was 16 years old. That was a long time ago. I was a state Texas Future Farmer of America state officer. He was the brand new, very dashing ag commissioner with very good hair. And we struck up a friendship. I ended up, we went to the same school, Texas A&M, huge Aggies, ended up being his very first policy director when he became the governor 20 plus years ago, and have obviously stayed very close. So, yep, that's my big buddy of 35 years, and he's wonderful. I'm not surprised you two are friends. And by the way, great to be back on with you this morning.
Now, let's talk about agriculture. You and Secretary Kennedy have been doing a great job on food for the American people, and making sure they eat healthier. You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, we've had really such an unbelievable partnership. I was just with Bobby on, end of last week, celebrating the birthday of Martin Luther King. Bobby's real connection there. He would sit in the living room of his uncle, President Jack Kennedy, or his dad, Senator Robert Kennedy, RFK, and he would sit there with the civil rights leaders of the time. He was 6, 7, 8 years old, but he remembers it like it was yesterday. And so for me to get to partner with Bobby and this beautiful heart he has, just like his uncle and his dad did for America, has been great. I've often said, John, that perhaps the civil rights issue of our time is the chronic health diseases that are hitting so hard across our country. And the way we solve for that, to your question, is a better diet, making sure that we're eating real food. So, yeah, week before last, we released the dietary guidelines for Americans. We flipped the triangle so that now instead of putting,
packaged food or carbohydrates at the top. The bottom of the triangle, which is what you should eat more of, we flipped it so that you're eating red meat, poultry, butter, dairy, broccoli, fruits, etc., real food that will really begin to solve this massive, and it's a national security issue, but this massive health epidemic that's facing our country right now.
And also what Bobby was doing with vaccines is very, very interesting because in my opinion, see, I say it that way because I say my opinion so I don't get sued, the vaccine companies were forcing too many vaccines at the first year or two of infants just to save money and get the money up front 8 years in advance.
It's amazing. At USDA, we don't lean into the vaccine, but as a mom of 4 kids, and now those kids are 15, 17, 19, 21, but I remember very well when they were, brand new baby, up to 5 years old. I had all 4 very quickly, and I would take them all in to my pediatrician, and he'd say, okay, well, here are the 15 shots that these kids need. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. I mean, just as a mom, it just didn't make any sense. And when I would dig in, well, who said that my kid needs a 3-shot vaccine for diarrhea? Like, I don't understand. Well, lots of people die around the world of dehydration. I'm like, but not in America. People don't die in America of dehydration. Why are we shooting up my infant with a vaccine that could potentially affect them? So this is a mom. I have really watched Secretary Kennedy's work on vaccines for his entire career. I have so many friends who believe that their children were adversely affected by those vaccines, and it's a new day. My heart breaks for those who really their kids were subjected to it and had really significant outcomes. But now that this new line has been, shown on this, and now that we're educating American parents, if they still want to get all those vaccines, they can. But I think the bottom line is just be educated, understand what's happening, ask the questions, and let's get this country back to where it needs to be in terms of a health outcome.
Give us the big picture. What do you want to tell the American people?
This last year, even with all of the pushback, even with all of the hate, even with the divisiveness, losing my dear friend Charlie Kirk, understanding the toxicity, I believe, that the left has really begun to embody. We were talking about RFK and President Kennedy and Martin Luther King all being assassinated within just a couple of years. It seems just so dark in so many ways. But having said that, the light, I believe, that our administration is working to shine into every dark corner of this country and around the world, right? Whether it's the persecution of Christians, whether it is fixing the vaccine schedule, whether it is getting better food, whether it is getting school choice to all Americans, especially those with the least among us, making sure that God is back into the marketplace and in the center of ideas and back into our White House and our cabinet. I have just had the most remarkable years serving our Lord, serving this president, serving the farmers and ranchers of America, serving the people of America, and that we're really only just getting started. The best really is yet to come. We know what putting America first looks like. We know that more than a majority of Americans agree with our policies, even if they don't have an R next to their name. And our goal is to not only change the country, save America and our constitutional republic, ensure that our founding fathers' vision is enacted, and fight for everyday Americans all day, every day, but also to change hearts and minds along the way. And John, you're a big part of that with this show and all that you do, and all of our friends out there as well. It's an honor and a blessing to get to do this work.
Well, God bless, and whenever you're passing close to New York City, please stop by, and we're able to talk a lot more real soon.
I would love to do that, John. God bless you, and God bless all your listeners, and thank you.
God bless America. You are listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. If you ever miss a segment or want to hear it again, go to WABCRadio.com, go to podcasts, go to minicast, and play back your favorite segment. With us today is a former speaker, the 50th Speaker of the United States of America, Newt Gingrich. Well, Newt, where do we start?
Well, I have to start because I am in Bern, Switzerland, with Callista, my wife, who is now the ambassador to Switzerland. And their big event is this entire next week, starting Monday, at Davos, Switzerland, called the World Economic Forum. They'll have about 3,000 people, including 60 heads of state. And President Trump is coming and bringing a large part of his cabinet. I'm going to go and sort of write things on Substack that I write just because it's going to be a circus. I went twice when I was speaker, and it's now much, much bigger. And it's literally all these people from all over the planet in this really tiny town. They're all talking to each other and making deals and talking about ideas. But from our standpoint, it's called the World Economic Forum, which is shortened to WEF. And people are describe themselves as refugees rather than refugees. And it just absorbs you. It's this little bitty village, and once a year for a week, all these people show up. When I was there as speaker many years ago, I went to a dinner with a guy named Jeff Bezos, who was a totally unknown business guy, who was describing at dinner this idea about having an online bookstore, and that's how Amazon started. I was really struck that night listening and talked to about 30 of us, and he had this idea, so he, piled all of his stuff in his car, drove to Seattle, set up what he initially thought of as an online bookstore, and of course it just kept growing and taking on more and more stuff, and nowadays it's gigantic. And we order things in Switzerland from Amazon, which is delivered through the Postal Service. So it's truly a worldwide company in a way that I suspect even Bezos, back when he started. And by the way, one of the great success stories, Bezos' business career begins at 16 when he goes to work for McDonald's. And that was his first real job, working at McDonald's.
Now, note, you live part-time. Your wife is the ambassador to Switzerland. Which way the Europeans are going? Are they now, they used to hate Trump. Do they hate him less? Do they believe in him? Give us that pulse.
I think it'd be more accurate to say that they see Trump sort of like having a giant rhinoceros in your backyard. It's not about hating or not hating. He's a force of nature. The United States is so big economically, and it's so big militarily that that it's a fact. And he, of course, is both amazingly energetic, and at the same time, he's you can't always predict what he's going to do next. And then every once in a while, he goes off and does something that nobody can explain. This Greenland story, for example, I don't believe Trump's going to invade Greenland. I think he is making a lot of noise to set up a negotiation to get what he wants, which is tourist rights, economic rights, mineral rights, and national security rights, because he legitimately understands that you have, with China and Russia, growing interest in the Arctic. China has more icebreakers than any other country in the world because they see the Arctic Ocean as a much faster way to get products from China to Europe. So they have an economic interest. And then when you look at the minerals, the oil, the gas, the rare earth, all the minerals that are available in the Arctic, it's a huge economic opportunity. And all of this is coming together. And so, if you're the average European, you're thinking, we really need Trump against Russia. On the other hand, we really don't want Trump to steal Greenland from Denmark. And we really have to find some way to live with the American economy. And the last thing I say about that I think you'll understand as a businessman, the Europeans made a decision about 30 years ago that they would rely on regulation rather than innovation. And we made the opposite decision. We decided we wanted to maximize innovation and then regulate lightly but not have enough regulation to crush what we were doing. That has been a disastrous decision for the Europeans. Of the 9 companies that are worth $1 trillion or more, 2 are Chinese, 7 are American. None, 0, are European. And the gap is widening. So the Europeans are faced with 3 or 4 really big crises. They have a crisis of Islamic immigration in countries that don't assimilate people very well. They have a crisis of the economy. They have a crisis that their biggest neighbor, Russia, is dangerously off track and could, in fact, be a real threat to them. And they have a crisis in that their American ally, who has historically been very stable, is now led by somebody who is very, very aggressive and who has a deliberate, obvious, determined effort to break up the old order and to move to a much more bilateral and much more American-centric model of how we deal with the economy and national security. So there are a lot of different things going on. Now, the underlying reality is Europeans like us. They know that we liberated them. They know that we protected them. And they know that in the long run, their future has to lie with the United States, not with China or Russia. So when I walk around, I don't get any anti-American feeling. I mean, I lived here as a graduate student during the Vietnam War, and there was real anti-American feeling. You don't get that sense today.
Newt Gingrich, thank you so much for coming on, and I hope the Davos experience goes great, and thank you so much, and let's talk again real soon.
The Cats Roundtable.
With us today is the chairman of the GOP, Joe Gruder, and, midterms are going to, you blink your eyes, and it's going to be midterm time. Republicans against the Democrats, but who is the Democratic Party? And the socialism has been spreading, and Mr. Chairman, what do you think?
Well, first off, John, thanks so much for having me on this morning, and I just want to tell you that you're exactly right. The Socialist Party is taking over the Democrat Party. I mean, just look in New York. You have AOC, you have Mondami. They are the new face of the Democrat Party. The big winners in this is the realtors in Florida, my home state, whereas people are flooding into our state to try to run away from these, policies that are being set at the high level of the Ds. I mean, but listen, that's what people voted for. I mean, you're getting exactly what they said they were going to do.
AOC, I mean, does she want to be president?
Listen, I think that she's making all the moves, and she has a lot of support out there. But I think that we'd love to see her as the Democrat nominee. I think some of our candidates would love to go one-on-one against her.
What progress is the AOC's making, the Socialist Party making in taking over the National Democratic Party, which they're trying to do?
What AOC and Mamdani and others are doing is it's giving confidence these radicals across the country and they're giving them confidence to run for these races, and which then in turns their primary battles into who can go further to the left. And that helps all of our candidates on the Republican side, because I think that we are the party of reasonableness and common sense. And I think that the other side has lost touch on reality.
What are the problems? The midterm elections are going to decide which way our country is going. I mean, and President Trump has said that if it goes the wrong way, the Democrats are going to be looking to impeach him day one.
Well, all you have to do is look at what happened during the shutdown. We had 43 days where the Democrats held the country hostage. And if they win the House or the Senate, what they're going to do is they're going to spend all their time investigating not only the president but everybody in service to him. They're going to impeach him. They're going to block any efforts that he has. And look at all the great things that the president has done over the first year. They can't even accomplish what he did in 1 year and 8 years. I mean, this president is literally saving not only the country but the world. I'm so thankful that God saved him in Butler, Pennsylvania, because I think God understands the importance of our country, and he is literally doing everything he can to help out the average American, not only worker but retiree, and making our country the best possible place to live. And that's why I think we're going to be successful in the midterms. We're going to defy history because the President Trump and his policies are popular, and he is ready to barnstorm the country to make sure that we're successful. And I think we're well on our way to following his lead into the midterms.
I mean, he's looking to save the northern hemisphere with saving Venezuela. And the other dream I have, and I think President Trump has it behind the scenes, can we make America drug-free?
Well, listen, he closed the borders, and I'm so glad they're attacking the boats that have been coming over, those drug boats, that are killing our kids, across the country. We should have been doing that a long time ago. I think the capture and the way they did the capture of Maduro and the way he's working the Venezuela government now is the best possible outcome in every way. I mean, I think he's like I said, I can't say enough good things about him, not because I'm party chairman, but because I'm concerned with the overall direction of the country and everything we've been asking for, everything he said he was going to do, he's actually doing. I mean, to be able to close the borders up literally for 6 months, have a net negative migration, and to be able to stop some of these poisons from coming into our country, he is doing an absolute phenomenal job.
What are you going to tell the common sense Americans? Not necessarily Republicans, not necessarily Democrats, common sense Americans. How can they go out and say, we want common sense to prevail in our country?
Well, look at what he's already done in terms of affordability. I think egg prices are down 70%. He's bringing down mortgage prices. He's trying to correct the disastrous Biden-era policies that existed prior to him. He's going to bat for the average American. He wants to help people. All of his policies have that in mind. He's trying to save the country by doing what he did in Venezuela, by being aggressive in Greenland, by making sure we have a strong Western hemisphere. Listen, if you want good government and good policies, the only direction you can go is by voting with the Republican on the Republican side. The left wants you to focus on being able to put boys in girls' locker rooms and in girls' sports. Radical.
Some of the Democrats want they want the drug boats to come through from Venezuela. I mean, I couldn't understand that.
It's crazy, and they don't want Maduro captured, even though Biden had a $25 million bounty on him. They want this stuff to continue. They want the fraud that exists to continue. It's mind-boggling to me, but what it shows you is TDS is real, Trump derangement syndrome. It doesn't matter what the president does, what policies he pushes. Some people out there are just, they are infatuated with hate in their hearts towards the president, and they will oppose him no matter what he does. He could save a busload of kids, and they would still attack him for it for some reason.
Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you for coming on. And is there a website they can go to?
We need everybody's help to be successful in the midterms. We have one goal. That's to hold the majorities in the House and the Senate for the president to give him a full 4 years. But we can't do it without everybody's help. Go to GOP.com, sign up as a volunteer, or do what you can as from contributing or helping, giving us some of your time. And then you could follow me at Chairman Gruters on Twitter and various sources. And listen, participate in the process. John, thanks so much for having me on again today.
Thank you so much, and God bless you, and God bless America. May we save our country, and we'll talk again real soon.
Thanks, John.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break. Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. What's going on in the Middle East? Well, I have a friend of mine on, Samir Halizma, and he is originally from Lebanon. He's an international businessman. There's so many things going on in that area. Give us an update. Yes. What's going on in Lebanon? Is Lebanon ever going to be free like the way it was years and years, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when Beirut was the capital of the Middle East?
Well, John, thank you to have me on your show. Last time I was in Lebanon was like 2-3 weeks ago. People are very optimistic. They are seeing the support that the U.S. is giving by helping the Lebanese forces, by gaining back the sovereignty of the country, by, improving port security. So there's a lot of shared intelligence between Lebanon and the U.S., and hopefully Lebanon will gain its freedom again. As you know, Lebanon been hijacked by a foreign militias for over 30 years. And now hopefully things will get back, with the new administration, with the leadership of President Trump. People are very optimistic.
Well, we still don't know what's going on with Iran itself. It depends if things settle down, or it's an open item. And the Red Sea, some of my shipping friends saying to me the Red Sea is still closed, and the boats have to go 17 hours around Africa. 17 days.
Well, yeah, as you know, Iran has invested over 30 years in that part of the world, and they have a lot of proxy all over, and so they cause a lot of problem in many parts of these countries. So yes, the Houthis, the problem with the Red Sea is Yemen and the Houthis who are controlling that part, and they cause they're interrupting the shipping.
But at some point, isn't President Trump going to send in the Navy and take any boats that interfere with anybody and just shoot them out of the air? I mean, it's just about getting to it.
It seems like it. We are watching. I'm not so updated what's going on with Yemen. I never been there, but from following the news, I know that they're interrupting all the traffic and all the shipping. Yes. But Lebanon is somehow calming down. The U.S. have done a lot of efforts by helping, and things is calming down in Lebanon. There's no problems. They're helping the army, the local army, to gain back its sovereignty. And things, they're controlling the border. Syria, it calmed down a lot. So things looks like it's on the right track.
Now, what's approximately the Lebanon, what's the approximate population, and how many bad guys are in Lebanon?
You see, the problem is not about bad guys. Lebanon is a small country that has around 5 million people and 22 religions. They have the Muslim with all the sect, Christian with all the sect. They have even Druze. And Lebanon has a lot of refugees. In Lebanon, we have around 4 million refugees that they came from Syria. And then now, since Syria is coming stable back again, people start to return back to their countries. So the most problem we had in Lebanon is the refugees. And now, controlling the border, deploying, the U.S. is building one of the world's biggest embassy for the U.S. is in Lebanon. So hopefully they want Lebanon to come back.
Now, Syria, it looks like President Trump has already made peace with them. So does that mean the 4 million refugees from Syria that went to Lebanon, do you think they may go back?
That's what people are hoping. But still in Syria, there's problems because Syria, you have the problem, sectarian problem. You have the Druze in one part who are on the border with it's a small community called Druze. They're on the border between Syria and Israel, and they are refusing to be under the Syrian government. And then you have the Kurds in the other part. They have still yet not building the trust with the local Damascus authority.
Samir Halima, international businessman. Lebanon is the original home. Thank you so much for filling in the American people, and let's catch up again real soon.
Thank you for hosting me. Thank you for hosting that show. Thank you, John.
The Cats Roundtable.
With us today is Lynn Shaw, and it's
Warriors.org.
And Lynn, give us what you're concerned about this week.
We are now rallying for no social media under the age of 16. We are drawing a line in the sand because the harms are proven. We've got the parents, we've got the kids, we've got, congressional hearings. Enough is enough in 2026. It is time to take action. And we need something that says, just like alcohol, you can't drink, you're not supposed to drink until you're 21. Well, if we put something out there, no social media until, 16 and under, you have to be 16 to go on any of these platforms and get people used to this idea. We think it can be done, and we know it can be done because, John, in, December 10th, 2025, Australia, of all places, announced a ban on accounts for under 16. What happened when that happened? I want everybody to understand, first of all, we are pro-tech, okay? We are about making it work, making it safe for everybody. But when the biggest story comes out of Australia, that is something to talk about. And people were whispering, John, about this for about the last year, like, oh, could we do it, under 14, under 16, under 17? But now that Australia has actually done it, let me tell you who's following. We've got now Brazil, Denmark, France, Indonesia, Malaysia, New Zealand, Singapore. You know who's missing on the list, John? The United States of America. We have so many studies telling us that pivotal age, between 15 and 16, the puberty age, that is when that brain is developing, all the neurons and things like that. And so many parents right now who have been screaming for this. We need something stronger that just say, we got to put down the devices. We got to do all that. We got to talk to our kids. Yes, we preach that all the time. We got to talk to our kids. But we need something now that says no social media under the age of 16, because that brain needs to develop. Because when kids are, in a gang, they may not necessarily take a chance on something, but when they're with a group, when they're online, okay, they'll be egged on, and they'll do something they ordinarily would not do. So we think 16 is the digital age, and apparently so does Australia and all these other countries. Now, this is in theory. We know what kids are experiencing, and we don't want everything on the shoulders of parents. With this, parents giving age verification and giving their ID to sign a child onto a platform, because people say First Amendment, privacy rights. I kind of agree with this. Why do we have to go through all that? Let's just have no social media under the age of 16. Hold the big tech platforms responsible, again, making trillions, billions. Who even knows, John, the amounts of money they're making off the backs of our children and families? Because, again, there's no regulation, and they can just run amok. They're a runaway train. But, arguing, simple age rules beat complex content rules, because I've been thinking about all this. We have 18 pieces of child legislation pending right now, sitting in the House, and they're stalling. It's more kicking the can down the road in D.C. We can't wait. Our kids can't wait. Kids are actually dying by social media harms and these challenges they're agreeing to do. They see on TikTok, and eating disorders and the cyberbullying. It's piling on. It's worse than ever. So let's take that all out of the equation. And let's follow Australia, and let's change what's actually happening. And again, it's not about banning content, but you know what it's banning? We want to ban contracts between children and addictive algorithms that right now, Google recently has been sending children who turn 13, John, their own email saying you no longer need parental consent for anything because you're 13 and that we consider at Google you are a digital adult. Who gave them permission to say that to a 13-year-old?
No, it's going on in California with what's going on with having changing their sex without parents' permission. Who is trying to destroy our country?
The United States. We pride ourselves. We say we're the best. We say we're the strongest. We say, and look at all these other countries around the world, okay? But besides destroying the country, the bottom line, and it's a very crass answer, is there is so much money being made, okay? So much from these predators online, all right, that they're not stopping. So in essence, they're destroying our children, who everybody's forced online these days for school and for work and for social activities, right? And we saw how this advanced during COVID. So how do you destroy something, right? It's about money, but it's also about power. You go after the youth, right, to influence their minds, to get them to do things against, their family unit, their parents, their community. And we have to remember, it's about the big picture. These kids now, these teens are our future American adults and leaders. Where are we going to be, John, in 5 and 10 years with all of this going on? So we need to, in the home, really take a hard stance and say, no social media in our house until 16. Get your neighbors and other kids, the parents from the classroom. And it's working because parents are doing this around the country. They're getting other parents, in the classrooms to all band together and say we're all going to have this contract together. No social media in our household until 16.
And Lynn Shaw, give us your website.
Lynn'sWarriors.org. Take action. Learn about all this. It's easy. There are simple fixes, but it starts in the home with you and your child.
This is a bipartisan issue. help save our children. Thank you so much, Lynn Shaw.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. Every Sunday morning, we'll bring you the latest in what's happening in our community, our country, and the world. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a nice Sunday.
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.